my distinguished colleague from the Silver State for anchoring the CBC special order on this incredibly important topic related to the ongoing problem, I would argue, epidemic of police violence largely directed at communities of color. The most recent situation, of course, occurred in Ferguson, Missouri, with the tragic killing of Michael Brown, and we all join our colleague Lacey Clay, as well as the CBC Chair Marsha Fudge, in pushing for justice, which we believe is most likely to occur through a federal investigation that is now ongoing. But unfortunately, the problem brought to light for so many across America, particularly the neighborhoods that I represent in Brooklyn, New York, by the killing of Michael Brown, is all too familiar for many communities across this great nation. In fact, back in July of 1967, President Lyndon Baines Johnson appointed what came to be known as the Kerner Commission, an 11-member commission to study the causes of civil unrest in urban America that were taking place since 64 and into 65 and throughout 1966 into 1967, prompting Lyndon Johnson, one of our greatest presidents, though that is not often acknowledged, given the leadership he demonstrated on domestic issues, appointed this Kerner Commission. The vice chair of the commission was the then New York City Mayor John Lindsay, a former distinguished member of this House. The commission concluded that some of the unrest that had taken place in cities like Detroit, Michigan, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in Los Angeles, in Watts, some of the things that had taken place resulting in unrest were caused by pre-existing conditions of aggressive police activity in African American communities, followed by a triggering event, often a shooting of an unarmed African American, and then an overly aggressive police response. This is what the Kerner Commission found when it issued its report in the late 1960s. But that same analysis could apply more than 45 years later in terms of what this country just witnessed in Ferguson, Missouri. A history clearly in that community of overly aggressive, excessive force, largely directed at the African American community, and then a triggering event, the killing of an unarmed African American, Michael Brown, who of course was shot twice in the head, and it appears a total of 6 times, and then an overly aggressive police response. In fact, a military response. The people at home in the district that I represent were shocked to see the images coming out of Ferguson, Missouri. It looked like Fallujah. It looked like a war zone in the Middle East or other parts of the world, not an American suburb. What did we learn, if anything, from the Kerner Commission report? Apparently, not much. And that's what we've got to confront in America. There's a reality to police brutality and its impact, particularly on unarmed African American men, that as a civilized society, we should no longer tolerate. Now, let me pause parenthetically and agree with my good friend's point, Representative Horsford, that the overwhelming majority of police officers in America are good individuals, hardworking, decent men and women committed to enforcing the law in an even-handed fashion. But there are too many cases of excessive violence often directed at unarmed African American men in America. We've got to address that epidemic. Perhaps we could begin by just reviewing the Kerner Commission report issued under the Johnson administration. It's shameful that decade after decade after decade, we've been unable to confront some of the realities brought to bear by that report. But perhaps the tragedy in Ferguson, Missouri, will wake us all up as a country. Fannie Lou Hamer made the observation that she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. At what point will we in America be tired of seeing another unarmed African American man's life being taken away prematurely by an officer using excessive force? And that is why we're hopeful that we not just deal with the law enforcement problem, but that we confront some of the underlying socioeconomic conditions that create a climate for some of these things to occur. And I look forward to that discussion as we move forward under the leadership of our chair and certainly working closely with the distinguished gentleman from Las Vegas. And with that, I yield back.
I thank